Tonight, new questions about where some vulnerable Alberta patients go when it's time to leave the hospital.
He said he's very lonely. He just looks at the door.
CBC News asks the minister directly. With the carbon tax center stage on Parliament Hill, a new report delivers hard numbers.
Unambiguously, the policies that are in place are working and have been working.
Plus, Rosemary and At Issue tackle the political rhetoric. A medical first pushes the boundaries of transplants.
It was truly the most beautiful kidney I have ever seen.
A man gets much needed help from a pig.
From CBC News, this is The National with Asha Tomlinson.
Thanks for joining us. Adrian is on assignment. We begin in Edmonton tonight with new questions for Alberta officials. There are concerns vulnerable patients are being discharged from hospitals, then sent to hotels for care. Just a week after we reported on a man with complex health issues who spent days without the necessary supports, CBC News has found another family at a different hotel, but in a similar situation. And both were there via a little-known social services company. Julia Wong covers this story again for us tonight.
A hotel is the last place Jenna Lee Green was expecting her father to end up when he moved from hospital to transitional housing. In early March, Glenn Green was taken to one hotel where he stayed until moving to a second hotel, all under the care of a social services agency called Contentment Social Services.
How did this place come to be? Who vetted it?
Green says her father gets some visits from healthcare workers, but is mainly left on his own.
He said he's very lonely. He just looks at the door.
The agency says it's in the middle of buying the hotel, but the deal fell through. It's defending itself.
We opted into this option because we thought it made great difference. We are not in the habit of putting clients in hotels.
The hotel owners say the agency has not paid for any of the rooms, and they're out tens of thousands of dollars. They say they had no idea the guests would have high care needs.
It seemed like a hospital than the hotel, and so we've been just trying to clarify, and then we just can't get hold of anyone.
Alberta Health Services says when patients are ready for discharge, care teams give them housing options.
Were these social services agencies and these facilities specifically, have they been vetted by AHS when they are presented to patients as an option?
Well, I don't know what you mean by vetted. Ultimately, the individual has a conversation with the provider and looks at that themselves and makes their own decision.
They will be removed off the list, and in fact, we will be reviewing the whole list that currently exists out there.
One health law expert says the buck ultimately stops with the province.
Alberta Health is the entity that has the capacity to legislate if necessary, to implement a licensing regime or to implement regulations requiring oversight of these entities.
One doctor who is involved with the care of these types of patients says there should have been more checks and balances.
I think ensuring that we are sending people off to somewhere they're going to be successful is part of that umbrella of that inpatient care.
For Green, there's no sense of how long her father will be at this new hotel.
We're trying to get him out, but wait lists are long. It's hard.
Julia, you've been at this hotel today. What have you seen?
So, Asha, we've learned that it isn't only hospital patients who were brought here. I spoke with a couple whose nephew is autistic, on income assistance, and is also under the care of Contentment Social Services in the community. They say that he was brought here suddenly, without any explanation. So there are still lots of questions about how many people are under the care of the social services company and how many of them were moved to hotels.
Julia Wong in Edmonton tonight, thank you. A medical breakthrough in the U.S., in fact, a world first. A genetically modified pig kidney has been transplanted into a human patient. And we're going to show you pictures from the OR. In North America, kidney transplants are by far the most needed. Christine Birak shows us how this success could lead to life-changing advancements.
This is it. A genetically modified pig kidney.
It was truly the most beautiful kidney I have ever seen. Thank you.
A team of surgeons in Boston spent 4 hours transplanting the first genetically modified pig kidney into a 62-year-old man. Once attached, almost immediately, it started working to clean his blood. Now, days later, a rare flood of emotion. A surgeon overcome with deep gratitude for the decades of research, unwavering teamwork, and the courage it took to reach this milestone for patients.
Our hope is that dialysis will become obsolete.
Massachusetts General says the patient, Richard Slayman, is now up and walking around the hospital after spending nearly a decade hooking up to dialysis machines several days a week to remove waste from his blood. Doctors say Slayman decided to undergo the experimental surgery after his human donor kidney failed.
He saw this as not only as a way to improve his own personal life, but a way to provide hope for the thousands of people who need a transplant to survive.
Already, genetically modified pig hearts have been used for transplantation. Patients survived for about 2 months. The key is preventing viruses and rejection of the organ. To do that, scientists used gene editing technology CRISPR to remove harmful pig genes while adding human genes to make it more compatible.
This is a truly exceptional and exciting advance both in biology and medicine.
Canadian doctors hope this surgery is just the beginning.
I anticipate we'll see many of these transplants done over the next decade.
But some are anticipating a debate over using animals in this way.
These animals are healthy, they're not stressed, they're super clean. So I think there's less objection here than there might be to the use of 1 billion pigs per year for breakfast.
So Christine, animal ethics aside here, what does this mean for people waiting for a kidney right now?
Dialysis isn't going away anytime soon, but this is a big step. Kidneys are the most sought after organ. There are nearly 3,000 Canadians waiting right now for a kidney transplant. Based on what we just witnessed, this research is progressing, but doctors stress human organ donation is still the key. That said, they're hoping this pig kidney will offer this man 2 years. He's recovered from the surgery, and it's expected he'll be discharged from hospital in the coming days.
All right, Christine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Elon Musk's brain chip company Neuralink has released video it claims shows its first human test subject playing online chess with his mind. Partially paralyzed after a diving accident, Nolan Arba had a Neuralink chip implanted back in January. Here he explains how it lets him control the computer mouse with his thoughts. Arba says he has had no cognitive problems so far, but the FDA has expressed concerns about this technology. The federal government has announced plans to reduce the number of temporary residents in Canada and for the first time setting limits on how many come in. But as Rafi Boudjikanian explains, while some believe it could help ease the housing crunch, it could also hurt businesses.
After admitting more temporary foreign workers during the pandemic, the government now says it may have gone too far.
Canada, like many other countries, has become addicted to temporary foreign workers.
Over the next 3 years, it wants to reduce the number of temporary foreign residents from 6.2% of the Canadian population to 5%, and lower the number of foreign workers a business can hire, though it will carve out exemptions for the construction, healthcare, and agriculture sectors.
This also encourages employers to prioritize workers that are already here, able and willing to do those roles. As of May 1st, we are asking employers that after they consider and offer the job to Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and refugees, that they also now prioritize recruiting asylum seekers.
Some observers say it could help deal with the shortage of housing and ease the affordability crisis.
If we think of there being 2 to 3 people per household, you're looking at a couple 100,000 homes. So this really will make a difference, because it also means that the non-permanent resident population isn't growing.
At least one industry is warning Canadians could feel a financial crunch if it loses out on temps.
We're an industry that didn't really recover from COVID. We were faced with traditionally low profit margins, labor intensive, and the supply of labor, if that dwindles as a result of these changes, and I think it will, you'll see more mom and pop restaurants closing in rural areas.
The federal immigration minister has not fully set his targets yet. He wants to meet his provincial and territorial counterparts to discuss the measures in early May. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
The federal government has also introduced legislation to remove the military's authority to investigate and prosecute sexual offenses.
The message I would hope to send to every member of the service and every Canadian contemplating joining the service, that we hear them. We know that every single one of them wants a respectful, safe, and supportive work environment, and we're going to do what is necessary, what is required in order to provide that to them.
Now, the move was part of recommendations in a 2021 report by a former Supreme Court justice. If this bill passes, the military would have to give all its ongoing sexual offense cases to civilian authorities within 60 days. The Conservatives have failed to topple the government with a confidence vote over the carbon tax. David Thurton looks at a new report on the policy, not the politics, and the tax everyone is talking about isn't all there is to it.
A new report shows that Canada's climate policies are actually reducing emissions.
Unambiguously, the policies that are in place are working and have been working.
The modeling comes from the Canadian Climate Institute, which is independent but receives some of its funding from the federal government. And much of the success in curbing emissions is thanks to carbon pricing. Canada's national carbon price works under two systems: a price on consumer fuels, sometimes called the carbon tax, and the industrial price on heavy emitters, which is expected to account for the largest chunk of emissions reductions in 2030.
It looks like the emissions reductions from the industrial carbon pricing system is driving around 3 times the emissions reductions of the consumer carbon price.
The Institute modeled these federal climate policies and their impact on meeting the 2030 target. While it found carbon pricing on the whole accounts for nearly half of emissions reductions, of that amount, just a small fraction comes from the carbon tax. Most of those reductions come from the industrial carbon price.
Upcoming Mideast.
The new report came on the same day Conservatives tried to topple the government over next month's planned carbon price increase. The government survived the confidence vote.
Why doesn't he have the courage to call an election and let Canadians decide? An election on the price on pollution? We had 3, Mr. Speaker, and we won them all.
With Trudeau trailing in the polls, Pierre Poilievre hasn't said whether his plan to remove the carbon tax applies to both consumer and industrial carbon pricing. According to the modeling, removing one or both will require a new climate plan and will be challenging. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Rosemary and At Issue will tackle Pierre Poilievre's push to topple the government over this carbon tax, and that's in about 20 minutes' time. U.S. regulators are accusing Apple of monopolizing the smartphone market. The Justice Department alleges the iPhone maker illegally limits competition.
For consumers, that has meant fewer choices, higher prices and fees, lower quality smartphones, apps, and accessories, and less innovation from Apple and its competitors.
In its largest antitrust lawsuit yet against major tech companies, the government alleges app developers are forced to play by Apple's rules. Those include restrictive terms and high fees with limits on the features that apps can offer iPhone users. Apple denied the claims. Ukraine may get a boost of weapons and artillery it's long been calling for, paid for with frozen Russian assets. The EU is considering the proposal. As Briar Stewart reports, a new attack brings fresh urgency to the call for help.
This is the aftermath of the largest air attack on Ukraine's capital in weeks. Apartments still smoldering after more than 30 missiles were fired at the area. Ukraine says it shot down all of the missiles during a 3-hour air raid alert. Some weary residents waited it out underground at metro stations. At least 17 people were injured in the attack, many others severely traumatized. She is in shock, says this mother. It was literally as if she was being thrown up and down. It was horrible.
Ammunition.
The latest attack comes as Ukraine's president warns that its low ammunition supply is humiliating for all of Europe.
And I urge you to help to protect our cities.
In Brussels, EU leaders are discussing a plan on how to help Ukraine rearm and how to pay for it.
Es geht immer die windfall profits.
Germany's chancellor is talking about a plan to use the investment profits from Russia's central bank assets, which have been frozen since the start of the war. It's estimated that the equivalent of $300 billion Canadian is stored in the EU, and that the profits on that could be upwards of $4 billion a year.
You need everybody on board to take these steps.
This Russian political expert says even if all the countries agree, it isn't going to make an immediate difference to Ukraine.
Whatever you use it for, it's going to take time. And of course, time is the issue here, both with this and with all of the other streams of funding that have been put on hold from the United States.
By that he means the $60 billion in military aid that's still held up in Congress. While the debate continues, there's no reprieve on the front line, nor for the residents whose homes were violently shattered in the middle of the night. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Brian Mulroney's casket has arrived at Montreal's St. Patrick's Basilica for 2 days of visitations. Family members were on hand as friends, former political allies and rivals, and members of the public lined up to pay their respects to the late Prime Minister. After lying in repose for 2 days, Mulroney's casket will be taken to the nearby Notre Dame Basilica for Saturday's state funeral. CBC News Network and CBC Television will be broadcasting that funeral live. Our coverage begins at 9 a.m. Eastern, hosted by CBC's chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton. Today, Manitoba's government formally apologized to 2 men switched at birth almost 70 years ago. One Métis, the other of Ukrainian and Jewish descent, both still processing the shock of their mutual discovery. Karen Paul's now on the mix-up, the apology, and what comes next.
What happened to you cannot be undone.
An apology after nearly 7 decades.
Richard Bouvet, I am sorry. Edward Ambrose, I am sorry.
Eddie Ambrose of Winnipeg and Richard Beauvais of Seashelt, BC were born on the same day in 1955 in a small Manitoba hospital. In 2022, they discovered through a DNA test that they had been switched in the hospital, raised by each other's biological families.
There was like something ripped out of me.
Ambrose grew up Ukrainian with a foster family. He recently got his Métis citizenship. Beauvais was raised Métis. A residential day school survivor, he was taken from his family during the 60s scoop. They met for the first time this week.
It's emotional for meeting someone who is you, but I am him. It's a reverse.
We wondered which one was born first and who was older, but
Yeah.
he's bald, so he's got to be older. That's it.
Their families are growing.
Technically, you're not blood related to, but you instantly become family with. It's been really, you have to understand there's a lot of emotions involved.
This isn't the province's first case of babies taken home by the wrong parents. 2 other sets of men from northern Manitoba First Nations were switched at a federally run hospital in 1975. They and their families got compensation from Ottawa. Their lawyer, Bill Gange, is now also negotiating with Manitoba on behalf of Ambrose and Beauvais.
My hope is that we're going to be able to work out a compensation package.
Premier Wab Kinew didn't make any commitments, but said,
We'll be there for the next steps.
The previous Conservative government said the province has no legal liability. It didn't offer an apology or compensation. Meanwhile, the statute of limitations for cases like this has long expired. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
For a second straight day, hundreds of protesters from the fishing industry converged on the legislature in Newfoundland and Labrador, demanding changes to where they can sell their products. This time, however, they arrived to find a wall of police officers already in riot gear. They were there to ensure government officials could enter the building and table the 2024 budget. While that did happen, members of the opposition parties chose not to attend in their own protest over how the Liberals are handling the fisheries dispute. One of baseball's highest paid players deals with an off-field scandal.
Here is Ohtani and Musgrove, and he rips one into right.
Allegations of theft and gambling involving his longtime interpreter. As measles cases spike, there are concerns the vaccine may be harder to find.
And was told to go to a travel clinic and basically pay for it myself.
And a figure skater shows age is but a number.
Diana is 40 years old.
We're back in 2. Kids in this school east of Montreal are getting their measles vaccines today. There's been 40 cases in Canada so far this year, more than double last year's total. Higher demand for the vaccine is leading to fears of shortages. As Lauren Pelly explains, the shot may be unavailable even if you try to pay for it.
Really just trying to keep my family safe.
Brian Harvey asked his family doctor for a measles shot before his next work trip.
And was told to go to a travel clinic and basically pay for it myself.
Those shots can cost around $75 at private clinics. Even so, this company, which operates out of Ontario and Quebec, says recent demand is unprecedented.
Typically, because we don't give out as many, we don't carry as much. Now, as we see the trends going on, we've started to load up a little bit, but a lot of vaccines are reserved for the public sector.
They're now trying to stock up.
There are concerns that, from a private sector perspective, that we're not going to be able to procure enough.
That's because the two major drug makers supplying measles vaccines in Canada have both posted shortage alerts this month. Merck and GSK each say it's thanks to higher demand. While private vaccine suppliers could be impacted, Health Canada assured CBC News that the companies can still supply public immunization campaigns, such as routine vaccines for children. Even so, some family doctors say they're being cautious with their vaccine supply as well.
We have to be judicious. We have a resource that is limited, and we have to be thoughtful in the way that we use it.
We're not actively reaching out to everybody in our practice. You can imagine how overwhelmed family medicine would get if we decided all of a sudden to just focus all of our attention on everybody's measles vaccine status.
But with measles cases rising in March break travel destinations like the U.S., even more Canadians could be asking for a shot. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
A baseball superstar is under a shadow of controversy.
Rips one and he gets on top of it. And Shohei Ohtani's first hit of 2024.
The explosive allegations against his interpreter. And Rosie is here with At Issue.
Hey, Asha, tonight we're going to talk about the battle over the carbon tax.
Trudeau does not declare today an end to his forthcoming tax increases on food, gas, and heat, that we will introduce a motion of non-confidence.
Well, the motion was defeated. Is Canada ready for another carbon tax election? Chantal, Althea, and Andrew join me to talk about that and more.
Baseball's biggest star suddenly finds himself next to a major scandal. It centers around Shohei Ohtani's interpreter, owing millions of dollars in illegal gambling debt. As Thomas Daig shows us, there are now questions about what Ohtani knew and when.
For years, wherever baseball's biggest star went, he followed. Shohei Ohtani's longtime interpreter and confidant, seen with him here in the dugout on Wednesday, as Ohtani made his official LA Dodgers debut.
2-2, rips one and he gets on top of it. And Shohei Ohtani's first hit of 2024.
Within hours, Ippei Mizuhara was abruptly fired by the club amid reports of illegal sports betting uncomfortably close to the Japanese megastar.
Ohtani had no knowledge about this. According to his own sources, they had no idea about this.
Mizuhara has been linked to bank transfers said to be worth $4.5 million US, reportedly wired from Ohtani's own account to a California bookmaker under federal investigation. Mizuhara first told ESPN that Ohtani made the payments to cover his friend's debts, but he later shifted his story, saying Ohtani knew nothing about his gambling. As the Dodgers played a rare overseas series in South Korea, Mizuhara is said to have taken responsibility at a closed-door team meeting.
Anything with that, the meeting,
can't comment. Sorry.
Ohtani's spokesperson now says the money was stolen from the slugger. He's not believed to be under investigation, but questions persist about what Ohtani knew and when.
Long term, I don't suspect it'll be too much of an issue unless it comes to light that Ohtani has been placing bets.
Here is Ohtani and Musgrove, and he rips one.
Ohtani already has a new interpreter and didn't miss an at-bat.
He's been able to compartmentalize.
For a two-time MVP with a pristine reputation, any trouble is bound to cause a stir. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Now we dig deeper into the news shaping our world. Rosie is here with that issue.
At issue this week, confidence in the carbon tax. It is set to increase on April 1st, but the Conservatives say the government should stop it altogether. In fact, the party made its Opposition Day motion a vote of non-confidence. That failed, but the rhetoric in the days before was at a campaign pitch.
An election on the price on pollution? We had 3, Mr. Speaker, and we won them all.
Wow. Then he shouldn't be afraid to have one more.
So how effective is this performative push by the Conservatives, and could another election be fought over the issue of the carbon tax? Hi there, I'm Rosemary Barton, here to break it all down tonight. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, and Althea Raj. Good to see you all. A week away from you makes the heart grow fonder. Chantal, I'm going to start with you. What did you make of the Conservative strategy here? Obviously, they're trying to keep the momentum going on the Premier's calling on some changes and trying to make sure that hike doesn't go ahead on April 1st.
A couple of points. It was clear a week ago that the government was not going to back down on the hike. So what this was about was mostly political theater. In the best case scenario, I'm guessing the Conservatives could have hoped that there would be some breakaway Liberals who would have voted with them. That did not happen. On the contrary, it seems to me that Justin Trudeau has managed to kind of reinforce caucus solidarity over the carbon tax. And final point, I'm old-fashioned. If you move a motion of non-confidence that would throw the country into a snap election, and you're the leader of the official opposition, I think you should show up in person for the vote. Mr. Poilievre did not. He voted virtually. Because he had a fundraiser in Toronto. That does send a message that it is political theater.
And so was it worth doing then, Andrew, to try and make the point that this is something that Canadians are talking about more and more?
Well, he's got 11 days until the increase goes in. So that's 11-day window in which he can milk this for all it's worth, because it's current, it's in front of people, and people are at least in the Premier's ranks, people are running scared or running opposed to this. But once it's gone through, I don't think it's going to remain top of mind for every Canadian for the months and months after that, between that and whenever the next election is likely to be. So sure, this is your maximum opportunity to score your points and to make the government look weak. I agree with Chantal that it doesn't look really great when you don't show up for your own vote. It makes it look like what it is, which is performative theater. But the performative theater is part of politics.
Althea?
Well, I think it could be a good communication strategy for the opposition. I agree that if you're going to take non-confidence motions seriously, you should be there in person. But beyond that, I mean, I'm not actually convinced that the Conservatives wanted to have Liberals vote with them, because they have had some Liberals, mostly from Atlantic Canada, vote with them in favor, for example, of a new carve-out for farmers when it comes to the carbon price. But here, by making it a motion of non-confidence, you knew this was going to be a whip vote. So really, all the Conservatives are after is that clip of the NDP members voting with the Liberals, the Bloc Québécois members voting for the Liberals. The optics are what they're going to capitalize on, and that's all that mattered today. That was all what this game was about.
So at what point then, Chantal, though, do the Conservatives have to be prepared to answer the other part of the question, which is, okay, you don't want a carbon tax, message received, but what do you want? What is the thing that you're going to put in the window?
Well, there are a lot of interesting questions. For instance, the carbon tax on heavy emitters. At some point, every tax filters down to the consumer. So basically, you're going to have to say, we don't believe that reducing Canada's carbon emissions do anything to combat climate change. So we will do very little. Or else you say, well, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and then you're going to see the usual, are these measures going to work? I believe that at this point there are many conservatives who believe that Canadians are willing to buy the, as long as it doesn't cost me anything, I'm fine with not having much of a carbon climate change policy.
Yes, I think two things are different now than in the past.
Yes.
One is that because of the economic situation, people have put the environment much lower on the list of priorities, rightly or wrongly. And secondly, the government is in such odium now that a certain proportion of the voters are going to cut the Conservatives some slack on this because they're so eager to get rid of the Liberals. So I predict, I don't like it. I would like to see the Conservatives come out with some kind of alternative policy. It wouldn't be as good as carbon pricing, but it would at least be a policy. But I don't anticipate it. I think they will skate as long as they can and come up with something as vague and as uncontroversial as they can, and I suspect they'll get away with it.
Althea?
But skating is a decision in itself, in the sense that if you're not telling industry that you support a price on carbon, you're telling them to hit pause. They're making business decisions based on the environment that the Conservative leader is creating, and that creates a lot more uncertainty. You know, he hasn't done that when it comes to $10 a day daycare, for example. He has said he will keep the program, so nothing prevents him from saying that. He is choosing to send that signal. But if we can just go back to the vote, because I think that there's something else that's really interesting, at least to me. It's the nuance. Is the nuance going to be lost? Like, I think the Conservatives are banking that there are low information voters and people are just going to have the attention of a clip on social media. The Bloc Québécois had some very good speeches in the House today, where they made the very good point that all these Conservative members from Quebec are basically voting against Quebec's interests. If you take away the federal backstop, then it means that Quebec is one of the two jurisdictions with the price on carbon. That means that things in that province are more expensive. That's bad for Quebecers, and yet you have a bunch of Conservative MPs from Quebec voting with the Conservatives on this motion. So will the Bloc Québécois be able to make an argument that is more nuanced? Because they're also saying, hey, if you had just straight up non-confidence in the government, we would have voted for it. But then you tied our hands. So I'm curious to see how much appetite there is really in the public to have an argument that's more fleshed out, because clearly right now the scare tactics on like 23% increase, like I got stopped on the street today, is everything going to go up by 23%? That is working. That has gone beyond Parliament Hill. These are like real people who are really concerned because of they've heard what Pierre Poilievre has said. That message has resonated.
Without hearing the second part, in that there is a rebate whether you get it all back or not. Chantal?
Interestingly enough, there is no anguish over this in Quebec. No one has stopped me on the street to say, why are we not getting rebates? Because people in BC and Quebec are not getting rebates, but they are paying that price. No political party or none of those represented in the National Assembly, we have more than a couple, is advocating a change in the Quebec climate change strategy. And so will it work in Quebec? I don't think so. I think the NDP, the Bloc is on solid ground on this. I think a majority of Quebecers are actually going to hold it against the Conservatives, not in every region, not in Quebec City where they have seats, that they are actually not doing very much on climate change, and that they are criticizing Quebec's National Assembly's will to do something about it, which is even more lethal to them.
Quick last word, Andrew.
We have to remind ourselves that rationality is not necessarily at the forefront of this whole debate. Everybody on the Conservative side essentially acts as if the rebates don't exist. They just blow past it. They know that they exist. They know that the data on this is that 80% of households are more than compensated for the increase, but they talk as if they don't exist. The public, for its case, I think a certain proportion of the public knows that they're being lied to and wants to be lied to. The people want to believe or want to pretend that there's a cost-free option out there that if you just charge the big polluters, or if you just put on regulations, that somehow the cost of those won't filter through to the public. And it's a sorry state about democracy, but I'm afraid it's true.
Okay, we're going to take a short break here, but when we return, we'll take a look at the NDP's controversial motion on the Middle East this week.
We were also able to find common grounds on the question of the two-state solution, which is also important for Canadians and for our country.
What kind of blowback will the Liberals face for amending and then supporting the motion? Will it cause issues in caucus? It certainly seems to have already. That's next. At issue, the NDP's controversial motion on the Middle East. Originally, it called for Canada to recognize Palestinian statehood.
Canada has a role to play in building a peaceful future in the Middle East.
That motion put the Liberals on the spot, but last-minute amendments allowed most MPs to support it, even as it angered others.
I think it's the first time in my parliamentary career that I've had a reflection like this, where I truly felt last night that a line had been crossed.
So how did the Liberal government convince the NDP to accept the amendments? How damaging is the motion for the government's foreign policy? Chantal, Andrew, Althea are back. Althea, why don't we start with you? The Liberals managed to get it to this motion to a place that was more palatable, more in line with their own foreign policy. But I wonder how damaging it was, regardless, to them inside caucus, in terms of criticism from Israel.
I think it saved a larger embarrassment, and I think that's why you saw a huge sigh of relief. The Foreign Affairs Minister, Mélanie Joly, on the vote night on Monday had a big smile on her face. Rob Oliphant was kissing Steve McKinnon and hugging Minister Joly. What happened was basically we were in a break week before this week. So MPs were back in their riding, and the NDP had signaled they were going to move this 2 weeks ago. So there were real, constituents lots of constituents talking to their MPs, encouraging them to vote in favor of this NDP motion. And let's be frank, there are far more Muslim constituents than there are Jewish constituents, especially in the battleground ridings around the GTA. And a lot of them, even not people that you tend to think are on the kind of far left of the Liberal Party, were telling the government, I feel like I need to support this motion. So there could have been a position where you had the substantial backbench, perhaps large, like more than the majority, or the majority, voting against the government's position. And so they needed to find a middle ground, and they started working on this on Wednesday, and it really didn't come together until Monday. And the question is interesting about whether or not, if they had an extra day, could they have brought more people on side? I think part of the reason why some people voted against it on Monday was because what had been communicated was really that the NDP was pushing a motion that recognized Palestinian statehood. And for many MPs, that was completely untenable. And, without talking about a negotiated solution. So I think for the greater good of the country, a lot of people felt like this was a good thing because sides are so divided, and that there was nothing that they could have done to brought the Conservatives on side. I do think, and I hope that Mr. Housefather feels like he still has a space. This is the Liberal MP for Mount Royal, who represents a very Jewish riding in the caucus, because I think it is important that we have large parties that are broad tents that include a diversity of views in this country. But it has certainly left people like him feeling very ostracized.
Andrew.
I can't blame him. I mean, this was a pretty cold-blooded decision to cut adrift those three MPs, because as Althea says, if they'd allowed, you have to ask, why did they let the whole motion get debated for a day and then make this complete about-face at the end? Why not just defeat the motion? Well, as I think Althea is suggesting, a good number of Liberal MPs might well have voted with this entirely one-sided motion that not only recognized the state of Palestine, but essentially had nothing substantive to say about Hamas. So she's right. There are more votes to be had on the pro-Palestine, anti-Israel side than there is on the pro-Israel side. And if you're an MP like Anthony Housefather looking at this, you're right to read the tea leaves and say, this party is not making room for me at this point. This party has made a shift.
Yeah, which is how a lot of Jewish Canadians saw that as well. It wasn't just Mr. Housefather, but there was strong reaction within the Jewish community as well. Chantal.
For sure, it was about damage control or taking the least damage, which is having 3 MPs vote differently, or having, who knows, 15, 20, 30 MPs. But I believe that MPs shortchanged themselves in the sense that it's jarring to watch the House of Commons debate a motion for an entire day. And 20 minutes before the vote, we're not talking about an amendment here.
Yeah.
The motion was rewritten
Yes.
20 minutes before the vote.
Several
So
amendments.
basically, whatever was argued all day was not what people voted on. And I also have a question for the NDP, which is, why would you accept that?
Yeah.
20 minutes before the vote. The answer you get is that one of the major lobby groups for Muslim Canadians wanted the motion to pass more than they wanted what was in the initial motion, but that's a weird way of doing business, to put it mildly.
Well,
I don't know if
yeah, go ahead.
so-
Go ahead, Althea.
I don't know if it's a weird way of doing business, because I think what
20
you
minutes before the vote?
No, but it
after a
wasn't-
whole day of debating something else?
I'm not disagreeing with the part about how odd it was to debate an entire motion and then have that happen, but I just mean on the Canadian Muslim group participating in the discussion.
Yep.
I think it's a good thing that we came to a resolution that is more inclusive of a variety of people's views and less polarizing. But on the idea of like having everybody around the table trying to work to an agreement, I agree. And yes, what the NDP won is really kind of peanuts in a way. But is it not better to have more people vote for a diluted motion than to have a more polarized electorate on such a sensitive issue that is bringing people on the streets every day? Like that to me, I think was should have been
except
the,
I think
should
some
be the
Jewish
goal.
Canadians would say it is polarizing still, the way it was. But anyway,
It still has been far less polarizing than it would have been originally.
Chantal, then
It's-
Andrew,
it's-
and then I got to go. Yeah.
It's an interesting assumption that because Parliament papers over differences, they are actually less or decreasing polarization in the country. I don't disagree with what was in the final motion, but if that's what you're going to do for a day's work, maybe you should just stay home.
Andrew, last
Because basically you're restating government policy, one. Two, I do believe that Canada kind of got lucky in the sense that they are in the larger trend of where the U.S. is going on this because of the debate it's been having with Israel over next steps. But still, this is not a way for Parliament to function.
Okay, Andrew, last word.
Well, I think there's a real difference, though, between the position the Liberals have been staking out and the position of the Biden administration in the United States. The Biden administration has certainly been critical of Israel for its perceived overkill, or whatever phrase you want to use, but it has also been very clearly in support of Israel's right to defend itself. It is not necessarily clear now that the government of Canada believes in that.
Okay, and with that, I will throw things back to Asha, and she, of course, is in Toronto.
Next, a figure skater could become the oldest to win a world championship.
He's giving hope that athlete's life is not over after 20-some years old.
The possible history in the making in our moment. An emotional Diana Stellato-Dudek and her partner Maxime Duchamp after the Team Canada pair finished a gold-winning free skate program at the World Figure Skating Championships in Montreal tonight. And with that, Diana made history. That's because at 40 years old, she's the oldest female skater to win a world title ever. Her win is our moment.
Diana Stellato and Maxime Deschamps took the stage at the World Championship in Montreal, Canada. They are two extremely special human beings. Diana is 40 years old, the oldest skater to take the stage at the World Championship.
Junior Grand Prix champion Diana Stellato.
She was at the top of the world in the singles event in the juniors category. And after an injury, she decided to just retire. And 16 years later, the flame was still in there. And Maxime, when he met Diana, like it was the perfect match. She's like just a machine that knows where she's going. And Max is this soft, so he brings really good balance. Tonight, the theme is Interview with a Vampire. It's a little bit of her edgy side that you see tonight.
It's a dream come true.
In French, we say la suite. You know, it's just the next step into Canadian history and definitely creating history because of her age.
Wow, adding to this Canadian moment, it's Montreal's first time hosting the World since 1932 and the first World Championship on Canadian soil since 2013. Bravo. Thank you for being with us. I'm Asha Tomlinson. Take care.